you may have some questions. So to allow for that, will you please welcome back to stage Managing Partner for Digital, Ben Foster, who will field any of those questions.
All right. So I'm going to go roving. Are you going to go rogue?
Roving, you heard rogue, didn't you? No, I was just going to go roving. If anybody has a question, I would like the microphone.
Round, and you can put me on the spot.
Oh, you're a good man, you're a brave man, because I was almost going to have to ask a question there. Jazz, finally get to meet you. How are you?
Right. Good, thank you. Going back to your original presentation at the beginning of the day, you made 5 really good points, actually. One of them, you spoke about too much optimization. So I'm going to ask you the question I always get asked that I can never answer, which is, where's the threshold of, or the tipping point of, this is now too much?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think obviously the danger is that you sort of get into an optimization spiral, right? And what happens is you're constantly trying to chase down a lower CPA or a higher ROI, and what you're doing is you're throttling the volume, even in your short-term metrics, but in your longer-term metrics, like you say, in terms of reaching new people, building that awareness, building that consideration, you're not doing any of that. You're not reaching new people. So the thing is that you won't see what is too much optimization in the metrics of the ROI or CPA, but you will definitely see it in the volume. And what I see a lot with clients is there's too much focus in just looking at what are we like month on month or whatever, or even some of them then looking year on year for the same quarter or month, whatever. Actually, the best bit of advice you can have is why don't you every so often just look at the last 5 years, right? And if you've got into an over-optimization cycle, it could be quite subtle, but if you look at volume metrics, key volume metrics, and key efficiency metrics over a longer period of time, you'll see this general trend of very slowly going up or very slowly going down. That is a really big eye-opener, because then that will force people to rethink, because it's if you don't plot it forward another 5 years, you could be screwed.
Oh, over there. Oh, that's good. There's an actual pathway to you. That's a right result.
Thank you. Hi there. Again, going back to your original presentation and reaching new audiences, what do you think the impact's going to be? Because as of the 22nd of June, the government has said that they will extend the soft opt-ins that is applied to commercial organisations, and they've said they'll extend that to charities. So just in the kind of lens of your original sort of presentation and reaching new audiences, what impact do you think that will happen and, over the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think it still comes down to testing and learning and things, but not... You've got to maintain your competitive advantage and stuff, right? So if you look around your sector, and I think so many people are going, right, we need to go completely cookieless now, and we need to be preparing for a cookieless world and a not full hard opt-in world and all these sorts of things and everything privacy, etc., right? And whether that will be Q3, Q4 of next year, like Google are saying, whether it will get pushed back yet again, for example, with the cookies, and yet again with legislation, like you just said. So, but the thing is, if you go to that now, although there's encouraging results and we're testing it, it's not quite as good. And I think the best example of that is actually what TikTok have done. TikTok only, about 2 months ago, brought out an entirely cookie-based tracking pixel solution for their DR and type acquisition activity. And their argument is, get that data for a year, it's worth its weight in gold, and we can actually grow even more, get even more spend, get learnings. When it switches off, we're in a better position, right? So if you start going too quickly now towards being completely compliant for the future, and your other people, whether rivals, competitors, whatever you want to call them, in your sector don't, you're a disadvantage, because even Alan, who sat there from Quantcast, will tell you he doesn't have all the answers. There's 4 or 5 routes it could go down with Quantcast. They're looking at all the different options, and a lot of their cookieless testing is doing really well, but it's not quite as good as the stuff that is reliant on cookies, because that's been going for over a decade, and this new stuff's been going for, a year or something. So my advice would be to keep within that testing and to make sure you are ready, and like everyone, like the measurement, have them running side by side and all this kind of thing, compare them. But don't feel you need to jump straight into being fully compliant for the future. Do take advantage of the quick wins of what you can still do right now. think that's us.
It's
Really.
become a Mexican standoff. Okay, one final question for you. Oh, was that? Oh, it was going. Right, there we are.
All right, this question is slightly on the fly, but having seen the flight deck platform, and you've taken this holistic view of all data across, and obviously we're moving to, as you said, we're moving away from cookies, we're moving away from all that, but we have to keep using it while we still can. How do you see, if you look at more traditional platforms where we've always taken a more holistic view, say out of home, for example, my area, do you see that being the big learning area for digital-focused campaigns and people, digital-focused campaigns, looking at the more holistic view and moving, and clients sort of seeing that that's the way they need to be looking and focusing in future?
Yeah, I do actually. I do in terms of overall campaign performance. I think the digital channels will mature into a way of working that you just said, a holistic measurement like has been used in the more traditional, above the line channels. You'll still use short-term metrics to make quick decisions, because obviously we're having to optimize all this stuff on the fly. So is creative A better than B? Is this audience tactic better than, than another, etc.? So you're going to have that short-term, you're still going to need the stuff we've used for a long time to make those decisions. What is best? What's the best creative tactic, etc.? But when you're making the big decisions, where do I put my budget? A channel level. How do I phase it throughout the year, etc.? All the stuff that Sarah talked about actually taking a big step back and looking at holistically. I think that is what will determine, budget allocation, and then the short-term metrics is like the optimization on the fly.
No other hands going up. It's like an auction now. Final bid, no. Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for that. So that brings us to the end of the morning. From our point of view, thank you so much for making an effort coming in. I know when the weather gets this hot, it's a bit tempting to sort of stay at home. But thank you for coming here. Really appreciate it. I hope you've been inspired by what you've heard today. Hope you've been excited by it. I'm sure it's tough when we put you on the spot for questions. There might be things you reflect on and think about. Please have a chat with us. Drop us an email. And it's always good to have these conversations. Few people I just want to say thank you to before we finish up. Would you mind giving a round of applause to the people who put this together? So that's Lucy, Emily, Emma and Hannah. This wouldn't happen without them, so huge thank you to them. I want to thank the venue staff for the lovely catering, the success in the Guinness World Records for biggest cookies I've ever seen. And also they're in charge of the aircon, so they really deserve a round of applause. Thank you for that, sorting all that out, really appreciate it. And thank you to all our speakers. So in the first half, you saw James, you saw Ben, Gabby, Helen, Simi, and Alan at Paris. And then in the second half, Tyrone, thank you for moderating. We had Ella, Blair, John, Dr. Sarah Faust, Christian, and then Ben again at the end. Thank you to all your speakers, and thank you to you for coming down. And have a lovely day. There are still refreshments to have. Don't forget, if you're a train geek, you can get the Elizabeth line back into the West End if you haven't had a chance of riding that, and they do have aircon. Lots of fun to be had there. And just have a great rest of your week. Thank you.